not ready to go. Yay! Hello, Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. Welcome to Toastmasters Tuesday night, 7:45, Hy-Vee Club Room, Fairfield, Iowa. We hope to see some of you viewers at home in person one of these days. Tonight, I would like to fill in for Carol Negro, who is out this evening. She will be back in a few weeks. And I would like to act as the Sergeant at Arms. My name is Rhonda Whitaker. I'd like to introduce our president, Mr. Louis Denbaum. Please help me welcome Louis Denbaum.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Golden Speakers Toastmasters meeting for tonight. I'd like to start by reading the mission of our club. The mission of Golden Speakers is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop communication and leadership skills, which in turn fosters self-confidence and personal growth.
Yay!
I don't see any guests here tonight. Who mentioned Toastmasters this past week since our last meeting? Yay! All right. Very good. We have found over the years that new members come in because they knew another member and heard about Toastmasters by word of mouth. So keep up the good work. And we are a non-discriminatory club. We do not discriminate on the basis of age, except for an 18-year-old requirement, race, color, creed, gender, national or ethnic origin, sexual orientation, or physical mental disability. As long as you're able to.
Well, I have to go on my last
As long as you're able to participate in the club's activities on your own. So I'd like to introduce Art Atkinson, our Toastmaster for the evening. Thank you, Louis.
Toastmasters, guests on the camera, and viewers at home. We do actually discriminate. If you're sufficiently bald, you get elected to an office in this club. The balder
the better.
you are, the higher the office. Tonight's theme is camping. My job as Toastmaster is to keep us camping.
All right.
Have you ever wondered, when did Americans get into camping? It wasn't always so. We have this wonderful quote from John Muir, written in what year I don't know. Thousands of tired, nerve-shaken, over-civilized people are beginning to find out that going to the mountains is going home. That wilderness is a necessity. But Muir wasn't the only one writing such stuff. The April 2013 issue of Smithsonian Magazine had a fascinating article about the publication in 1869 of a book called Adventures in the Wilderness, or Camp Life in the Adirondacks. Published just after the Civil War, written by William Murray, a preacher from Boston. This book sponsored an enormous migration of people during the summertime out of Boston and New York into the Adirondacks. They called it Murray's Rush. Unfortunately, it was one of the coldest, wettest summers in Adirondack history. And that meant that the black flies were out. It had been a really severe winter, and the black flies were out. And these people were just unprepared, seriously unprepared. They were called Murray's Fools because the book was published on April 1st. But it was the beginning of an enormous movement of which John Muir was the benefactor, of people going out into wilderness. And I think one of John Muir's quotes is, "In wilderness is the salvation of the world," or something of the sort. So enough from me. I recommend this article, Smithsonian, April 2013. We have a number of role players helping us to carry out tonight's meeting. First of all, I'd like to call on our timer, Jyoti Raj Adhikari. If you would tell us, please, Jyoti Raj, what you'll be doing.
I'm your timer tonight. My job is to keep time of the speakers and evaluators. Table topics are generally 1 to 2 minute speeches. The green light dawns on 1 minute, and yellow light dawns on 1 minute 30 seconds, and red light dawns on 2 minutes, and remains on until the end of the speech. Previous speeches are 5 to 7 minutes, but today we have 2 speeches. Both are 4 to 6 minutes. Green light on 4 minutes, yellow light on 5 minutes, and red light on 6 minutes. And we have evaluation, which is 3 minutes. Green light on 2 minutes. Green light dawns on 2 minutes. Yellow light dawns on 2 minutes 30 seconds. And red light dawn on 3 minutes. And remains on until the end of the evaluation. I will give the report at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti Raj. We do have a grammarian this evening, Diane Denbaum, who will explain to us what she will be doing.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Hi, who's at home. And guest, we have a guest. Hi, Doug.
Yes.
Nice to see you. Great. Before there was no guest, now there's a guest.
I'm on the other side of the camera, so when you were waving at them, I took it to be myself.
I went with the theme of camping and found the word canteen. That's the word of the day. That's my job, to pick a word of the day. Felt old-fashioned to me. So with your article, I think we're going back to the past, but it's a small container used by hikers and soldiers, but I didn't exclude them, for carrying water. Sometimes you could tie a canteen on your belt. And then the second definition, it's a noun, so the second definition is a place. It's in a summer camp where refreshments and personal supplies are sold. And the way I used it in the sentence was, Robin and I love talking about our canteen purchases. So I'll be listening to see if you use that word. My other job is I'll be looking for exceptional uses of the English language. I'll also be listening to see if there's any corrections I need to make in your usage of the English language. And I'll make a report at the end. Thank you.
We have an all-counter tonight, Madi Kandari, who will explain to us his role.
I'm all counter, and I will count filler words such as like, you know, so, but, and. Also, I will count time click, repeat, and false start. Thank you.
Our general evaluator, from whom we'll hear later in the meeting, is Stephanie Chambers, who will also provide us with a joke later on. And our timer, Jyoti Raj, will also be our ballot and leader counter. Thank you, Jyoti. Now it's time for the hors d'oeuvres. I'd like to invite John Miller, our table topics master, to come forward and conduct his part of the meeting.
Thank you, Eric. Guest, viewers at home, fellow Toastmasters. I left the hors d'oeuvres in the car. But I will enjoy them on the way home. I'll tell you next week how they were. Camping. I have a short list here of about 3,000 topics for table topic. So we'll have a long meeting today. Remember to use the word, if you can, canteen. I remember Camp Legionville Patrol Camp, as though it were 45 years ago, which it was. So I have some topics selected. Who would dare to come forward and risk making a short talk about camping? Doug is your name? Please come. Yeah. Way to break the ice, Doug. Thank you. What is your earliest camping memory?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, Toastmasters, and guest. That's me. It was YMCA camp. This was in Alberta, Canada. And it was my first trip away from home, and I was terribly homesick. And I remember some counselor took me under his wing and spent time with me, just hiking with me and things like that. And it was a very good experience. It was on the Bow River in Calgary, Alberta, where I grew up. The Elbow and Bow Rivers come together. The Bow River flows right out of the Rockies into Calgary, or the foothills of the Rockies. Beautiful country. And forgotten the name of the camp, but that's where it was. On the Bow River, we had horseback riding. We had a canteen, certainly. And I don't remember my canteen purchase at this time, but I'm sure I loved talking about them way back then. And what else can I say about that earliest memory? It was a lot of fun. I got over my homesickness by the end and stepped forward into many camping events after that were comfortable. And so it's great memories, and thanks for this opportunity to have it recalled to me and to speak about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks for sharing that story from the long ago childhood experience. Another brave soul. Doug broke the ice.
All right, Joe.
Thank you. Name a foreign park, I should say, delete the word foreign. Name a park that you have not camped in, but you would like to, and tell us why.
I've done very little camping in my life. It's something I always wanted to do when I was young. And by the time I was old enough and had somebody to camp with, he wasn't interested. And his idea of camping was to get an RV and take the house with us on the road. And we never even did that. We would go to the screened shelters at the state parks. And he would close his eyes and meditate for the whole weekend. And I would cook and clean and take our daughter hiking. And it wasn't much fun either, except the hiking part. I always wanted to see the national parks. I don't think I've seen one except for Big Thicket in Texas, which was spectacular. But I've always wanted to see the national parks. And Yosemite is one that I often think of. And when I see pictures of Yosemite, I just drool. I just want to be there so bad. And I was thinking about this just a couple of days ago, how much traveling I still haven't done. And that the national parks would just be wonderful destinations. And I hope someday to be able to travel to Yosemite and other national parks before I'm too old and decrepit to be able to manage. Oh, thank you very much.
Stay determined, Jolyn, and you will get there. Two brave souls have stepped forward. Jean? Thank you, Jean. Tell us, if you would, about a camping disaster.
It was summertime in New Jersey. Several friends had invited me to fill in at the last minute on a canoe trip that was going to start somewhere at the one end of a river that flowed downstream, and we were going to go down this canoe and spend the night, and then the next day end up at the ending and get picked up, and that sounded reasonable. I was told I was supposed to bring a breakfast. Now, I didn't really know these people, a couple of them I knew a little bit, but I didn't really know them well. Okay, so we get in the water, and this is not a river. It is a stream that is, clouds of mosquitoes are flying around constantly. We had to keep getting out of the canoe and pulling it over rocks because there was very little water, actually. I don't know where they decided that this was enough water to do a canoeing. So we kept, and we had bug bites down parts, and we were throwing on the really heavy-duty chemical stuff. I'm very much bug gourmet food. So I don't like bugs, and camping is not so great for me because of that. But we went down this river, ate a lot of food as we were going, had lots of bugs. Next morning, I'm supposed to provide the breakfast. I didn't realize I was supposed to provide the breakfast for everybody. I thought I was just supposed to bring my breakfast. So the whole group is looking, and I've just got some little thing. So, okay, no problem. And they talk about clueless. And I was ready by that night, even before the breakfast incident, I was ready to, where is the highway? I'm hiking out of here. I've got to get home. This is horrible. This is horrible. I think that is one of my worst experiences with camping. But I tend to be more in the vein of Joe Lynn's husband. Let's bring the nice equipment, i.e. the rolling trailer, and let's all participate in it, not just have one person do all the work and another person kind of head off. That's it. Thank you.
That's a great story, Jean. Thanks for sharing that. Three brave souls have stepped forward and broken the ice. There's hardly any ice left to break, so it's easy now. Don't be shy. Oh, Art? Oh. Tell us, if you would, Art, what kinds of wildlife have you encountered while camping?
Toastmasters, friends, guests, viewers at home. Wildlife that I have encountered while camping. I've done my doggonedest to participate in groups that tried to attract wildlife, so we had something to look at, some interesting diversion. My camping experiences began in Southern California, Ponderosa and Jeffrey Pine forests. And these are remarkably devoid by this time of wildlife to see. There's a few birds here and there. No mammals, besides squirrels, to be found. They're peaceful. Because it's arid country, you can see for 100 yards through a ponderosa forest. The trees are enormous, 200-300 feet tall and 3 feet in diameter. The ponderosas get that big. They have pine cones that have bear claw scales. They literally look like a bear claw. And Jeffrey pines smell delicious like vanilla. And they're much smaller pines. But wildlife, not there. But my scoutmaster was determined that we would find some kind of wildlife. One of his solutions was, let's spread some peanut butter mixed with honey on the bark of these trees and see if anybody shows up interested in eating this stuff. No. The most interesting wildlife actually would be other people. And when you asked about camping disasters, I was brought to mind of one of the most amazing, looked like it was going to be a disaster that turned into a fabulous camping experience. We were camping on a camping trip in the summer. I was in 11th grade, and we were at Jasper Provincial Park, west of Calgary. It was raining cats and dogs. Everybody had pitched their tents, and it was just coming down tremendously. And we all huddled in a three-sided shelter about like this and sang songs and drank hot coffee until basically all night. And it was the most international, fabulous group to get to know. It was just a total win. Everybody's tents were soaked, but the camaraderie of people forced to take shelter in this place was just fabulous. Thank you.
Very interesting. I'm still dying to find out, though, who went after the peanut butter and honey on the tree. You can do a second table topics here. 5 brave souls. We need 1 or 2 more brave souls. Diane?
Do you want to go around? Because I have a job.
I do too.
Go.
You have been chosen from a vast crowd of applicants in Toastmasters to host a Toastmaster Camping Jamboree. Where will you bring the jamboree to, and how will you organize it? What kind of activities to excite the people and so forth?
Thank you.
I would take the Toastmasters to a horse ranch on Cedar River in Tipton, Iowa. There's plenty of camping room next to the riverbank, and I would take them there because when I went there once, I had a burning bush experience. And I think this would be a great initiation for people into another world of camping that usually isn't talked about. I myself was wished a burning bush experience by a friend of mine. They'd heard I was going camping and someone had seen UFOs that week. It was in the news, and they thought maybe I would see a UFO or a comet or something. So I was a little excited about going. I was a little nervous. When I got to the campground, I could see all these beautiful mullein plants in the camping area next to the river where I wanted to pitch my tent so I could have the fireplace. And I thought, well, I don't really feel comfortable running over the plants. So I took some tobacco and I offered it and I said a prayer and I sang a song to the plants to let them know that I would like to use that area. Could I have permission? Well, I got permission and I set up my tent and I went to sleep that night comfortably after looking at the stars to see if there was anything special for me. I woke up in the night for some apparent reason because I felt there was a presence in my campsite. The campsite was lit up by this yellow-green light. I looked outside and there was a green form between my tent, the fireplace, and the river. And it was shaped like like my grandmother, kind of, a little plump thing without too much definition, and some long arms, but more like no fingers, just a thumb and some paw. And it had these long spikes that came up its back, disappearing out of sight into the sky. And lovely little antennas that came out like this and bumped off the cheek. And a nice, sweet smile. So at first I wasn't scared. And then I realized what I was seeing, and I got scared. And I realized I was dreaming. I got up, I opened the tent, I went outside, and it was pure dark. I took my flashlight and looked all around. There was nothing around the tent. I got my cornmeal out, and I sprinkled it all around the tent to keep bad spirits away. It was like I was having a burning bush experience. It was fun. The next day it was fun, because I woke up and I realized I had had some special message, like a medicine dream from the plant spirits. And I would like to give every Toastmaster a burning bush experience like that, so they can connect with nature in a more intimate way, if they're willing to go now.
Rhonda really made the Toastmaster Camping Jamboree sound exciting. When is that scheduled for, by the way?
Next week.
Next week. So, Diane, were you volunteering to be number 6?
What time is it?
It's 8:10.
Okay, so let's give it
We got time for one more.
Okay. Try it again. There we go. Thank you, Diane. Share with us, if you would, a special memory that you have had. I'm assuming something here that you have participated in some kind of childhood group camping experience with Girl Scouts or with school or church group or whatever. If you haven't, then go ahead, let your imagination run wild and generate an experience.
Thank you. Good evening again, everyone. Guests and viewers at home. I actually do have an experience. This is a perfect question. And I'm really happy because, Rhonda, that was really something. That was fantastic. So I have my own story. We are going to go back to probably the 60s. And I used to go to this, just a day camp. My friend Robin and I, who I used in my canteen sentence, would walk up to Phelps Lane Pool, and there'd be a day camp from 9 till noon. I think it lasted about 6-7 weeks. We did all the camp activities, arts and crafts, swam in the pool. At the end of the camp, there was a play. And Robin and I got chosen to do an act. We spent hours, days. The planning was so much fun. What we came up with was she was Liza, and I was Henry. And we did that song, There's a Hole in the Bucket. So I started, there's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, there's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, a hole. She'd say, with what shall we fix it, dear Henry, dear Henry. And it goes on and on. It's one of very predictable, but fun. And we were doing this in front of, I think there must have been 100, 150 kids at the camp. The part that makes the experience was we said, we used to love that expression, don't clap, just throw money. So we decided, okay, let's put that into action. We had all these coins, mostly pennies. Got all done with this song, stood there, Henry and Liza, very proud. We looked at the group as they were clapping, and we said, don't applaud, just throw money. Oh, I know what it was. We gave our friends money, so they had the money. Don't applaud, just throw money. A long time ago, I think this trip. And all of a sudden, all these coins were flying all over the day camp, assembly hall. And good old money, the energy of money, kids went wild. Up out of the seats. I got the quarter, I got the dime, because there weren't very many quarters. We got in trouble. So, Liza and Henry, the whole thing, we were in big trouble. We were pulled aside, stay after camp. And we were reprimanded. But that was my experience. It was really something.
Great story, Diane. I wish I'd been there to pick up some of those coins myself. We're out of time now, so I will turn. Oh, let's see. I think I need to ask the timer to tell us who the names of the table topics presenters were, please.
Only 3 of them qualified: Douglas, Jolene, and Jean. The presenter were Douglas, Jolene, Jean, Art, Rona, and Diane. But only 3 qualified: Douglas, Jolene, and Jean.
To invite our table topic evaluator, Dan Craig, to come forward with his evaluation.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, honored guest. We had 6 speakers tonight. I'll have to go through quickly. Our first was Doug. He began by greeting the audience. Very good thing to do. The thing that I noticed particularly about Doug's talk is that he moved a bit on the stage, but comfortably. It's a good idea to move about some, and I thought he looked very comfortable up here. The recommendation I've got for Doug, at one point you said, "What else can I say?" So what's the recommendation? Don't say that. The other thing I liked about your talk was you personalized the story for us. You said, "I was really homesick." We felt it. So good job. Jolene was next, and congratulations, first time up.
Thank you.
She had some good humor. She began by explaining how camping was sort of a frustrating experience in her prior life, having to go in the vehicle instead of actually camping out. I had one suggestion for you. It was you might want to think about moving towards the front part of the lectern, connect a little more with the audience. That's a pretty small thing. The other thing I noticed that you did well was you made us feel how badly you wanted to go camping. You really wanted to go to Yosemite someday, and we believed you. Jean and her disaster story began well by taking a few seconds to think about her topic, and one thing she did that we didn't all do was began with a good opening introductory statement. What was it? It was summertime in New Jersey, and she managed to wrap up her talk too. So table topics, of course, is a speech. If you can organize with a beginning, a body, and a conclusion, then you've given a stronger speech. She had good humor. She's gourmet food for bugs, and the story about how she provided breakfast was good. I thought that the thing she could have done better was to use the stage a little more physical storytelling. When you were talking about having to portage your canoe over the rocks and everything, that could have been you could have kind of given us a little more acting there. That would have been good. Art, the first thing that I would commend you on was your vocal variety. You had several places where you emphasized with your voice. You began by saying, "I'd done my doggonedest my whole life to attract wildlife." And you sort of said that in a louder voice. You had a couple spots like that were good. The other thing I really liked about your talk was that you painted word pictures very well. When you talked about the huge pines, how you could see through them, and then one variety smelled like vanilla. I felt like I was in that forest, so that was a good technique. The only thing I would suggest for you was that you segued a bit when you talked about, you wanted to talk about a fabulous camping experience that looked like it was not going to be good. That was interesting, but it was kind of a different talk. So you gave two talks, which is not the strongest, but all in all very good. Rhonda gave a really great talk. I enjoyed it a lot. And it definitely painted word pictures for us, sprinkling the cornmeal to keep things safer, and spreading tobacco, asking the plants for permission to stay. That was all very cool. You also moved on the stage. I think at the time you were sprinkling cornmeal. You were doing that. And so that was good. Two little things. I don't think you greeted the audience, and of course you took too much time. Not that I would ever do that. And finally, Diane gave us a very funny story about getting in trouble at camp. A lot of it was good. The best thing that I noticed was gestures. Diane does that a lot. You know, when she's telling a story, she's got the gestures you really like to see. The only thing I'd suggest is a little more vocal variety. In some spots, you could have really jazzed it up more. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Very perceptive comments. Now for the main course of our evening, the prepared speeches. I'd like to invite first Annette's evaluator, Rhonda Whitaker, to be giving the introduction for Annette Estes' talk.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Annette is giving her icebreaker tonight. This is her first official speech. It is an honor. We've seen her for a few months. Now we have the first speech. We get to know her better. Annette Estes is a coach, a consultant, and a trainer. Through her company, the Estes Group, she is seeking businesses that are passionate about improving employee job performance in the areas of behaviors, attitudes, and teamwork, productivity, and safety. She's here tonight to present her icebreaker talk so we can get to know her. The title is 7 States. Please welcome Annette Estes.
Again, I have a gift for all of you at the counter. I bought some icebreakers. So if you would pass them along, if anybody wants one, and yourself. Fellow Toastmasters, friends, I ask you, why on earth did I move to Fairfield, Iowa? It's a long story, and I'm going to start at the very beginning. I was born in Texarkana, Arkansas, at a very early age. I lived in 7 states, Arkansas, obviously, then San Diego, California, where my dad was in the Navy. I don't remember any of that. I was too young. We moved back to Arkansas, where my brother Tom was born when I was 5 years old. The following year, we moved to New York State, number 3, where Dad got his PhD in education at Columbia University. We lived in New York for 10 years, so that when I was 16, going on 17, we moved back to Arkansas, where my dad taught English, and I graduated from Crossett High School. That summer, we moved from Crossett, southeast Arkansas, all the way up to Clarksville, northwest Arkansas, where Dad was head of the English department at the University of the Ozarks, and I entered college majoring in secretarial science. Career choices for women back then were very limited. I joined the drama club. I entered some beauty pageants. I even won some local pageants and won state title. When I was 19, I was the Arkansas Forest Queen. Don't laugh, it's real. Now this was not a beauty pageant. No evening gown swimsuit, no singing, thank goodness. We were judged on how well we could deliver a 20-minute speech on the Arkansas forest industry. I did my research, I wrote my speech, I memorized it word for word. I practiced every day and every night for weeks. I was ready. Night of the pageant, I'm sitting on the stage with all the other contestants. The MC announces my name. And I get up and I go to the microphone and look at the sea of faces looking back at me, and my mind went blank. But I had to say something. Here's how I started. I promise this is a true story. I said, fortunately, I remember my speech. It must have been okay because I won. Now, as Arkansas Forest Queen, I had to drop out of college and travel the state of Arkansas every weekday, talking to civic clubs, schools, any group that would listen to me as I extolled the virtues of the Arkansas forest lands, and to please listen to Smokey the Bear for the safety of the wildlife and the campers in the canteen. The best thing about being the Forest Queen was, when I got back to college, I changed my major from secretarial science to speech and drama, and it changed my life. I graduated, I moved to Louisville, taught English at a high school there, met Bob Estes, a dental student. We got married in June, and then we moved across the Ohio River. Kentucky's my fourth state. Moved across the Ohio River to Jeffersonville, Indiana, because I got hired to teach English and speech at Jeffersonville High School. One day, the general managers of the 3 TV stations in Louisville came to speak to the teachers, and I said, "How does one get a job on TV at your station?" He said, "Come down and audition." So I did. And a few months later, WLK by TV hired me to be Miss Annette of Romper Room. So I went from teaching teenagers to preschoolers, not a whole lot of difference, really. I worked in public affairs, I did some news, I was on the way. We had a reporter at that station that I knew then was going to be on the national network someday, and I was right. Her name was Diane Sawyer.
Wow.
Yeah, started out in good company. My husband Bob finished his oral surgery residency, and he wanted to go back to his home state, so we moved to Spartanburg, South Carolina. State number 6. I couldn't get a job in TV, either in Greenville or Spartanburg. They just wouldn't give me the time of day. So I was just a housewife for several years until Bob and I decided amicably to get divorced. I went to WSBA TV, and I said to the general manager, "I really want to work in TV news. I know you don't have any openings, but could I just work for free in the newsroom to learn the ropes and get experience, and then I could get a job in TV news?" "Sure." So I did. I worked for free, came in every day, just like I was getting paid. Well, after 3 months, Bob and I separated, and I went to the general manager, and I said, "You have to hire me and pay me, or I have to go." He said, "Okay." They hired me as their weekend news anchor, thank you very much. Yes! 3 months, they moved me to co-anchor the 6 and 11 o'clock news. I was the first female anchor at that station. Worked there for 10 years, worked at another station for 5 years. I'm going to tell you more about all that later, stay tuned. Then, when I left television, I started my coaching and consulting business. After a few years, Mom had a stroke and moved in with me. I took care of her the last 12 years of her life until she died in October of 2011. So there we were, we'd come full circle. She was there when I came into the world. I was there when she went out. One of the things Mom did for me was to learn transcendental meditation, teach my brother and me. Tom's been living in Fairfield 10 years. I didn't have her Social Security check anymore. The rent was going up. I called my brother and said, "What?" He says, "Move to Fairfield." Going, "Hey, make $700 a month." And so that is why I moved to Fairfield, Iowa.
All right. And then, yes.
Thank you, Annette. Toastmasters, please use your forms. Let's 2 minutes, Mr. Timer. Let's get to evaluation.
Okay.
There's a pause. No, and it starts again. Numbers. 50, 20. This. I'll go to 0. And I'll start from 0 again. What's this? Oh no. Just keep going. Okay. Just keep going.
Okay, please wrap it up. Next, I would like to invite, she's writing furiously, I would like to invite Louis Denbout, our next speaker, invite his evaluator and introducer, Jean Simon Craig, to come forward with her comments, introduce Louis.
All right, Jean. Louis is going to be working on speech number 3, project number 3 of the Advanced Communication Series Manual entitled Storytelling. The project is called The Moral of the Story, and his objective is to tell a story with a moral. I'm going to read his objectives. His objectives are to understand that a story can be entertaining yet display moral values, to create a new story that offers a lesson or a moral, and he can either create an original story with a moral, or he can take a moral from another story that we may have heard and create a new story to illustrate that moral, and to tell the story using the skills developed in the previous storytelling projects, times 4 to 6 minutes. So it's going to be good. Stay tuned. Louis is the co-author with his wife Diane of the book Madly in Love Forever, A Guide to True and Lasting Love. In addition to being a relationship coach, Louis is presently bringing communication skills, stress reduction techniques, and executive coaching to businesses. The title of his story is A Confusing Day During High School. I mean, does anybody relate to that? But anyway, I'm sure it's going to be above our usual confusion during high school. And the disclaimer that he would like for everyone to have is that none of the photos displayed during Louis's speech took place on that day, and some are not of the actual location. They are shown to give you the flavor of the event. Please help me warmly welcome Louis Denbout.
Mr. Toastmaster, club members, guests, and viewers at home. Come back with me in time to October 15th, 1969. The United States is deeply divided about the U.S.'s involvement in the war in Vietnam. That day, the anti-war movement declared the day National Moratorium Day. Students were urged to not go to school that day. That day began for me just like any other day in high school. My friends and I left our quiet, middle-class neighborhood and walked the 1 mile to our school. We were really excited. Our New York Mets had taken a 2-1 lead in the World Series the night before. And yet, I was anxious. Even though I was adamantly against the war in Vietnam, I wasn't sure whether I was going to skip school that day. When we arrived at school, there were already hundreds of students standing in the middle of the street protesting. Peace now! Peace now! End the war! I joined them. Peace now! Peace now! End the war! We kept these slogans going for a while, And I felt kind of disappointed. Are we really making an impact standing in front of Cardozo High School, chanting anti-war demonstrations on this very important day? Then the moment came. College students from a nearby community college arrived and urged us to join them at Queensborough Community College for their protest. We joined them. When we got there, the scene was a little bit more intense than it was at our high school. Students were giving speeches on a makeshift stage that they had prepared. Then somebody got up and said, "Are we going to stand here all day listening to speeches? Let's do something. Let's stop traffic on the Long Island Expressway." 10 minutes later, we found ourselves standing on an embankment looking down onto the expressway. By this time of the morning, the traffic had thinned out and the cars were going at 65 miles an hour on the 3 lanes going west into Manhattan. We carefully went down the steep embankment. And I don't know how they did it, but that first bunch of students found a way to get onto the expressway without getting slammed by cars coming at 65 miles an hour. Finally, I was on the expressway. We formed a wall of people, 25 people wide, 25 people deep. And you should have seen the befuddled drivers honking their horns. But get out of our way, get out of our way. Peace now, peace now, peace now. I was ecstatic. We were finally making an impact. We were doing something to end the war. That euphoria didn't last very long. All of a sudden, students started yelling, "Cops! Cops!" We panicked. I looked up the embankment. There were about a dozen police cars pulling up and parking. We ran as soon as we could up the embankment, away from the parked cars. I glanced over my shoulder to see the police officers coming out of their cars. They were in full riot gear. Helmets with masks, nightsticks, guns. Yikes! Who invited them? I turned and I ran as fast as I could, huffing and puffing, afraid to look over my shoulder until I got home. That night at dinner, I announced, "Guess what I did today? I stopped traffic on the Long Island Expressway to fight the war in Vietnam." My father turned to me in utter disbelief. What? That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard of. What does stopping traffic on the Long Island Expressway have to do with the war in Vietnam? You could have been injured. What if your mom was in an ambulance on the expressway having to go to the hospital and couldn't make it because of the traffic jam that you created? Silence. I don't think anybody in the family said another word during that meal. That night, as I tossed and turned, trying to fall asleep, my father's words raced through my head. Damn it, he was right. What I did was stupid. I started to pray. I sure hope that anything I did today did not injure an innocent person. And while I was praying, I realized mob mentality is never a good thing. Mr. Toastmaster.
Lewis, please now take 2 minutes to write your evaluations for Lewis. Mr. Timer, please run 2 minutes for me. Okay, time's up, folks. Now I would like to invite you to vote for the best speaker. I need to know, Mr. Timer, if both of our speakers, Annette and Lewis, qualify.
Okay, both of them qualified. The name is Annette and Lewis.
Both qualified?
Yes.
Please vote for one of these as our best speaker of the evening. Now I would like to invite our General Evaluator, Stephanie Chambers, to come forward and lead this part of the meeting for evaluation.
Now in the evaluation portion we get to learn how things can be made even better. So I will ask our first evaluator, Rhonda Whittaker, to give her evaluation.
Well, does anyone here feel like they know Annette better now?
Wow.
Yeah. Annette owns her professional experience as a speaker. She has so many good qualities already as a speaker. Strong points being self-confidence, poise, relaxed, sociable personality, happy with a good attitude, strong character, and being a good example of many facial gestures and arm gestures. Great enunciation. How well did the audience get to know the speaker? I think we all know we can go to Annette for advice if we want. Did the speech reflect adequate preparation? I believe it did. It was well organized. It had a wide variety of gestures and facial expressions using props, the chair, for instance, and the mints. She had us laughing at the very first thing and drew us in. I like the body language you used to count the states, because at one point I was so drawn into your speech I was forgetting what states had to do with it. And you counted the states for us, you held your fingers up, and actually I thought that was a great technique because I think it's 55% of what people remember from a speech is our body language, which yours was abundant. Did the speech have a definite opening, body, and conclusion? Yes, we began at the beginning with her first speech, a full body of experiences going through the different states, and the conclusion brought it right back here to the present day, the moment, time, and day here, why she's here in Fairfield now, and what it's like, and that's an ongoing thing that will continue for her. So it was a nice fullness to that story. Did the speaker use notes? They were nowhere in sight. They weren't necessary. I thought that was pretty phenomenal for a speaker. How could the speaker have done differently that would have improved the speech? I would say a couple new standing positions. You did use the stage quite a bit. There was one favorite spot you had and one favorite stance, which is like this.
It's all the beauty pageants, I can't help it.
The beauty pageant. So I would suggest make up some new ones. Practice some new standing positions. You know, something that's a little more unpredictable.
Okay.
And perhaps a few pauses, just a tiny bit longer to make a point. Because I personally was following you. I was getting really excited about hearing the next thing that's coming from you and where you went with your development and your path in life. And I think a pause would have been good. For instance, I can't think of one at this point, but pauses would help. What did I like about the presentation? I liked the warmth and the open sharing without any timidity or fear. She was totally fearless.
Excellent. Nice job. Thank you, Rhonda. Next, let's see, Stephanie, I think actually you should do inviting the next evaluator. But I'll do it for you.
So the next evaluator is Jean Sumington Craig, who's evaluating Louis Denver.
Fellow Toastmasters, guests, viewers at home. Isn't Louis just a phenomenal storyteller? I just want to give him a round of applause. Everyone who knows me knows I love to find ways to improve, i.e. find critical things to add. I am struggling with this. Let me tell you a little bit about what I wrote down in terms of the objectives for the speech. Was the story presented simply and clearly? Yes, it was very step by step. We were following right along as the story developed. He had gestures throughout that enhanced the story. He's got all kinds of things he's doing, not afraid to meld his body with his story. You want to change that light out? Thank you. He had his, I don't know where the shirt went. I loved it. The tie-dye shirt and the slides that gave us more flavor and color for that time. Those of us that were around or somewhere watching the news can remember that. He had simple sentences that were easily followed. I was watching. He had subject, verb, objects. But what he did with those sentences, which I'll get to, was what gave it all the color and the flavor. How did the speaker capture and hold our interest? Really, this escalating protest movement and the actions that were coming out, I was on the edge of my seat. What are they going to do next? He had specific details that in terms of providing these pictures and also the way he described things, embankments and the cops and all of that. It was all very easy to follow as a picture in my mind. He had very well crafted dialogue at the dinner table. I like that dinner table scene and the dawning wisdom from the father. And then he also gave the historical background of the time at the very beginning. It was October 15th, 1969. Specifics help pull the audience in and flesh out details. I really like that. Were all the elements of a good story included? Plot, setting, characters, action, etc.? Yes, they were all there. I just had to say really well done. I'm going to keep struggling to see if I can think of something else to pull in. How did the speaker use vocal variety to add to the story? Well, he is an expert, really, on vocal variety. He had volume, peace now. I didn't know if I was really going to go to school. And silence. And carefully we're going down the back. Lewis has this very powerful voice, but he can go all the way to the quietest volume. And that's very impressive. And he also obviously can go to the loud volume. He had very good use of pauses. We formed a wall of people, 25 people wide. 25. It's like, that was wonderful the way he did that. He had changes in his speed of speech also that really emphasized elements in the speech. The twist, there was this drama, adventure, and it was brought up short by Dad's pointing out there were ramifications, possible injuries that could have happened here. That was the twist. And then he gave us the moral at the end. My one recommendation could be to have a little more time to say something, maybe an additional sentence or two about that statement at the end. Mob behavior is never acceptable. And something else that just, one more sentence, I think, would have pulled that for me.
Now we'll vote for the best. Oh, first, Jody. Just ask timer. Just ask our timer if all the evaluators qualified.
We have 3
Given
tonight.
that Dan had a lot of people to evaluate, I think he should be given a bit extra time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give him some
We're
extra
given
time.
4 minutes for him, but he couldn't qualify. Only Rhonda qualified.
Don't you think we should give a minute for every person you evaluate? So Rhonda was the only one
That
who...
is to decide in the
Okay. All right, so Rhonda was the only qualified? Okay, so we don't need to vote then. Okay, so moving on to our reports, I'll ask Jyoti on this report.
In table topics, Douglas 1 minute 21 seconds, Jolly 1 minute 14 seconds, Jean 2 minute 24 seconds, Art 2 minute 49 seconds, Rhonda 2 minute 59 seconds, Dan 2 minute 40 seconds. In speeches, Annette 6 minute 29 seconds, Lewis 6 minute 27 seconds. Table topic evaluator Dan 5 minute 31 seconds. Speech evaluator Rhonda 3 minute 15 seconds, Jean 3 minute 50 seconds. This is my report. Thank you.
Now I'll ask our grammarian.
All right. Good evening again. Wow. Well, first I'm going to do the word of the day. Thank you, Doug, for using canteen twice. Otherwise, it was not a very popular word.
Annette used it.
Annette, you used
I
it.
cannot believe that I've worked that into my speech, but yes, ma'am, I used it. Smokey the
You
Bear,
did kind of quiet.
safety of the...
Kind of quiet.
Thank you. Great. Wow, I missed it. I really did miss it.
That was hard, so thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't know this.
That was hard.
So now just some words, and it was just a night filled with visuals. It's unbelievable. I'll just go through an informative intro from Art. John used a lot of humor. Doug, just that whole thing about the counselor and the homesickness. It was so more visual almost than what words you used. But I really felt it, as someone said. Jolynn, the hubby who's off meditating while you're cooking clearly. whatever else you were doing. And then Yosemite, I would just drool to get there. I got how much you want to go by the drooling analogy. And then, you know, wanting to travel before you're old and decrepit, I was like, oh, yikes. But anyway, I got it. Jean, in your table topics, the clouds and mosquitoes, and that you're a buggers. You're gourmet food for bugs. That was pretty funny. And then art as the table topic, the whole description of the Ponderosa. It was just so much I couldn't write it. I was enjoying it more. And the peanut butter and honey on the trees. And then Rhonda with the burning bush experience and green little plum things. And I mean, you're just a whole thing. I couldn't write all that down. Most enjoyable. And Dan, something about tons. I don't know. Yeah, I think you said the same thing. You even acknowledged in the table topic about just all your visuals. All right, I said me. I want to say it one more time. Don't applaud, just throw money. Oh gosh, I haven't said that since that night. I say it again. And Annette, my goodness, really what stands out, to me it's hysterical, the Arkansas tree queen. Forest queen.
That was a very important position. It was not a joke.
I know.
Quick
I'm not
Do
being
you know who was first
disrespectful.
one the year before me? Donna Axel, who became Miss America.
Wow. That's just a kick. I love it. And then the sea of faces that were looking back at you somewhere. You know, you because you were the forest queen, you couldn't go to college. I thought that was a kick. I don't know. I just got you. Fantastic. And then the, you know, I taught teenagers and I taught preschoolers. There's not much difference. And then Lewis, oh my goodness, you know, forget about it. Visuals and, you know, the Mets winning and the confusion in school and Vietnam and the police and your dad, you know, the whole thing. So I couldn't write everything. I was too busy listening to you all. It was a really great, great night of language. So thank you. The grammarian is happy.
Diane, we like to keep our grammarians happy.
When the grammarian's happy, the president's happy.
And now I'll ask
Okay, enough.
Dog has 3 arms, 2 hands. Jolene has 1 arm, 2 hands. Jean has 1 arm. Art was clear. Rhonda has 1 so 2 hands. Diane has 2 hands. Dan has 1 arm, 1 so 2 hands. And Anna was clear. Louis was clear. Rhonda, as an evaluator, has 1 arm. Jean was clear. Thank you.
My role is joker reader. I'm going to read a joke about camping. So Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson went camping. They pitched their tent under the stars and went to sleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, Holmes woke Watson up and said, "Watson, look at the stars and tell me what you see." Watson replied, "I see millions and millions of stars." Holmes said, "And what do you deduce from that?" Watson replied, "Well, if there are millions of stars, and if even a few of those have planets, it's quite likely that there are some planets like Earth out there, and if there are a few planets like Earth out there, there might also be life." And Holmes said, "Watson, you idiot. It means that somebody stole our tent." Now in my role as general evaluator, you're not supposed to laugh at your own joke, I'm sorry about that. I just my own joke at the end. I didn't write it. But anyway. So now as general evaluator, I'll say that it's been a very enjoyable meeting, and I really enjoyed the evaluations that we had tonight. First off, we had Dan, who is excellent at doing what he thinks people should have done in their table topics. He really gives everyone a wonderful sandwich of giving them positive feedback and then one little thing that they could do to improve the next time, where he normally demonstrates it, and then some positive feedback at the end. And that's wonderful, and it really takes a lot of skill to be able to do that, especially in a very short time constraint that we had. Then we had the speeches, and we had Rhonda giving the evaluation of Annette. And Rhonda did a great job of describing all the wonderful things that Annette did in her first speech as an icebreaker. Because it's an icebreaker, traditionally the evaluator doesn't give too much in the way of suggestions for improvement. And I think Rhonda did a great job of explaining all the things that Annette did right, and that filled up most of the speech, which was wonderful. I like the way you asked the audience a question at the beginning about how we thought Annette's speech was, which was great. I did think that the feedback you gave was spot on in terms of having Annette look a little bit more at her posture, because that's something that you can watch the video and look out for to improve the next time. So that was great. Then we had Jean evaluating Lewis's speech, and I can empathise with Jean and how difficult it is to find suggestions for improvement with a really experienced speaker like Lewis. So Jean went through all the points in the book, and I think we all learnt a lot about the things that Lewis did right in his speech. I think the only thing I'd be a little bit careful, Jean, when you're doing that is not to recap the speech too much. Otherwise we might feel that we're just, in a sense, hearing it again. So it's tricky to find that balance of kind of recapping all the good points without actually repeating too much of the speech. But overall, I think you did a great job in finding one or two. That last point, I felt the same as you did, that it was a little bit of an abrupt end. But it had been a great speech, so I can understand that it's hard to think of things for us to improve. The only thing I thought when I was writing it down was that maybe he didn't even need those pictures because he did all the descriptions of the police as it was. So maybe if you're a really talented speaker, I would tend to think you don't really need PowerPoints. That's my feeling. But overall, I thought the evaluators did a great job tonight, and it's been an excellent meeting. Thank you.
Now for dessert, we have recognition. The votes are in. And first we will hear about the best table topic speaker. Jean. Next, the best evaluator. We know that the best evaluator is Rhonda. Good job, Rhonda. And finally, the best speaker, Annette Esty. Your award, Best Speaker of the Evening.
Oh, go to my office. As an icebreaker, you all were very warm. Thank you, a great audience, and thank you for that wonderful evaluation. If I had paused for once, I wouldn't have this.
The skill of watching the clock, which none of us tonight didn't do. 9:04. We managed to actually stay 3 minutes over time most of the meeting. My fault. And now I'd like to re-invite our president to grace us with closing remarks.
I'm in practice from Annette while I'm giving this
Oh,
call. So, Doug, do you have anything you'd like to say about what you enjoyed about the meeting?
I was so impressed with all the speakers tonight. I was just blown away. And it's a great inspiration, and I appreciate the chance to hear it all. Thank you for having an open club that a guest can just drop in. Thank you.
Club business, I would like to invite Jean Simonson Craig, our Vice President of Membership, up.
All right, Jean.
Fellow Toastmasters, first I just want to say that we had a number of officers that went to officer training this last Saturday, and it was really well done. It was up in Cedar Rapids. We learned some things. We had lunch afterward. We learned a lot of things. Very high level. I'm going to recommend that for anyone who wants to go next time. I think that's a really good, Division B, really good place to go. We had lunch afterwards. We talked about things, each one of our positions. We talked about things that we had learned, and we saw as possible applications for this club. So you may see some things coming down. Nothing too dramatic, but still. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to conduct a membership vote. And we're going to do this fairly regularly so that we can decide when we want to have someone join the club. So when they fill out their application and they give their money, we kind of hold on to that for just a little bit so we can have that vote and then formally welcome that person in. And then next week we'll do the induction for that individual. It happens to be JoLynn Gates, and she is doing her icebreaker next week, so she is not concerned about an induction at this point. But if we could have our acting Sergeant at Arms escort JoLynn out. This is not going to be a big deal, but we're just going to have the opportunity for. Okay, so
Jean, should I as guest step out?
it's okay, Doug. But maybe we can do the time on the camera just for a moment.
I don't know how to pause.
We don't know how to pause it. Okay.
So it's either I stop it or I don't.
All right. Well, so here's the thing. We just want to have a motion. First of all, JoLynn would like to be a member of the club. Are there any issues that anyone feels needs to be brought out in connection with that as to why she maybe would not be a good addition to the club? You know, axe murderer in 5 of those 7 states. I don't know.
We're short on axe murderers, so having one would
And
be
we don't discriminate, right?
Yeah, good addition.
So good. Yeah, we haven't had one, I think. Think of the stories. Fantastic. All right. All kidding aside, I would like to have a motion that
we accept JoLynn as a member of the club.
Okay, do I hear a second for that?
Second.
Okay. And then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. All right, so motion is carried. All right. Let's welcome JoLynn. Welcome to Golden Speakers. It's our newest member. Yeah, very good.
Very happy to be here.
Very good. Very
Are you
good.
an expert? We're
Well,
hoping you
I
are.
was going to present that in one of my later speeches.
Yeah.
That's good.
Don't ruin her ice cream.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, very good. I think we're done with that. I will hand it back over to our president.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Now I'd like to call up our next Vice President, Diane Denbaum, Vice President of Public Relations.
Relations, yes, thank you. First thing, I'm looking for a helper, wondering if there's someone who would like to take these Toastmaster magazines and there's this blank section, wondering if you'd be willing to make some, get a label maker and make labels and then place them around doctor's office, hairdressers, things like that. Even if you put the labels on and bring it next week, the further delegation would be to just hand a few to each person. Anybody that feels like has a label maker, feels like taking that on?
I know how to do.
Yeah.
I can do a blurb thing. That can
That'll
go.
be great.
The stickers that you just peel them off and just stick them on.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
then
I will do that.
This is what should be on it, and then you can bring them back next week, and maybe we'll get them handed out that
Yeah.
way.
Well, I'll bring the labels, and maybe we
Okay.
could just like whip them
Okay.
or something. I don't know.
Great. Good. Great minds. Good. So that's taken care of. I am the VP of Public Relations. If there's anything happening, anything in your life that's happening as a result of being in Golden Speakers, please let me know. And perhaps write something up for me so I can put it on social media. Just talk about it as I walk around the town. But seriously, just, please help me. I need to know what's up. For example, I'm going to plug a member. You may remember that Lewis gave a speech in Speaking to Inform manual about EFT, an emotional release technique. He's going to be speaking about it again in public and giving a workshop. That's on Thursday at 1:45 and Saturday at 9:15. See Lewis for details. That's an example of what I'll do as the VP of Education. Public Relations. I was the VP of Education. That's it. Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Is there any other club business? Okay. One of the things that Diane and I like to do is when we hear words, where did that come from? Someone said tonight it was raining cats and dogs. Does anybody know where that came from? Anybody? So maybe someone could Google that and report back to us where that came from. In fact, I know it was raining cats and dogs because yesterday I stepped in a poodle. I mean, what an image. There comes a Siamese, there's a poodle. Anyway, it's really interesting where these words come from. They're pretty bizarre, some of these things. So, no further business, and anyone like to make a motion that we adjourn?
I make a motion we adjourn.
Anyone second it? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.